The morning sun peeked through the grimy windows of Wilson's auto shop, casting long shadows across the concrete floor. Maya Jackson wiped her hands on a rag that had seen better days and stepped back to admire her work. The old Chevy's engine now purred like a content cat, a far cry from the sputtering mess that had been towed in yesterday. "That's the third miracle you've pulled off this week," said Pete. The shop owner, a man with wrinkles as deep as the Detroit winters were long. "Don't know what I'd do without you." Maya smiled but said nothing. At 32, she'd learned that in this world, her work spoke louder than her words ever could. 15 years of fixing engines had taught her patience, with machines and with people who doubted her. "Going to grab some coffee," she said, hanging the rag on a nearby hook. "Want some?" Pete shook his head, already bent over paperwork at his cluttered desk. The shop wasn't fancy, just 4 bays, tools that had been handed down for generations, and the smell of oil that never quite washed away, but it was honest work, and Maya took pride in that. The bell above the door jingled as she stepped outside. The spring air felt good after hours in the shop. Maya stretched, feeling the satisfying pop in her lower back. Across the street, Mrs. Chen waved from her flower shop and Maya waved back. This neighborhood wasn't rich, but it was tight-knit. People looked out for each other. Maya had just reached the corner coffee shop when she heard it, the unmistakable sound of a high-performance engine in distress. The noise made her wince. Whoever owned that car was doing serious damage by continuing to drive it. She turned around just in time to see a sleek silver sports car, a Lamborghini, Huracan, roll to a stop in front of Wilson's. Even from a distance, Maya could tell it was worth more than she'd make in 5 years, maybe 10. Curiosity pulled her back toward the shop. The coffee could wait. By the time she returned, a small crowd had gathered. It wasn't every day that a $250,000 car showed up in this part of town. The driver's door opened and a man stepped out, his Italian leather shoes touching the cracked pavement like he was afraid it might stain them. "Blake Townsend," Pete whispered as Maya approached. "Real estate guy. Has his face on billboards all over the city." Maya had never seen him in person, but she recognized the name. Townsend Development was behind the luxury condos going up downtown, the ones replacing the old community center. Townsend stood beside his car, talking loudly into his phone. "No, I need it fixed today. The charity gala is tonight and I promise to show it off." He ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, his frustration evident. "Find me someone who knows what they're doing." A younger man, probably an assistant, hovered nearby looking anxious and typing frantically on a tablet. Pete stepped forward. "Mr. Townsend, I'm Pete Wilson, shop owner. What seems to be the problem with your car?" Townsend ended his call and turned, his eyes quickly scanning the modest garage with obvious distaste. "The engine's making a noise. Something's wrong. I was on my way to my regular mechanic when it got worse, and I had to stop." "Mind if we take a look?" Pete asked. "Fine, but be careful. This isn't some pickup truck." Townsend's voice dripped with condescension. "Who's your foreign car specialist?" Maya stepped forward, wiping her hands on a clean shop towel. "That would be me." The change in Townsend's expression would have been comical if it wasn't so predictable. His eyes widened slightly, then narrowed. He looked her up and down, taking in her work boots, jeans, and the dark curls she'd pulled back in a practical ponytail. "You're joking," he said finally, not to Maya but to Pete, as if she wasn't even worth addressing directly. "Maya's the best mechanic I've got," Pete said firmly. 15 years experience. Specialized training in European performance vehicles. Townsend laughed. Not a genuine laugh, but the kind people use when they think something is ridiculous. "Look, no offense, but I need someone who actually knows what they're doing. This car cost more than this entire block is worth." Maya had heard comments like this too many times to count. From her first day in auto shop class in high school to now, there had always been men who thought she couldn't possibly know what she was doing. "Pop the hood," she said calmly, ignoring the insult. "Let me listen to it." "I don't think," Townsend began. "Just let her look," Pete interrupted, his patience clearly wearing thin. "If you don't like what she has to say, you can call a tow truck. No charge for taking a look." Townsend hesitated, then pressed a button on his key fob. The hood released with a soft click. Maya moved forward and carefully lifted it, propping it open with the support rod. The engine compartment was a work of art. Carbon fiber, titanium, and precision engineering. Maya felt a familiar flutter of excitement. No matter how many engines she'd worked on, the really special one still gave her a thrill. "Start it up," she called to Townsend, who was now standing with his arms crossed, watching her skeptically. He slid into the driver's seat and turned the key. The engine came to life with a growl, then a concerning rattle followed by a high-pitched whine. Maya listened carefully, her trained ear picking up nuances most people would miss. She leaned in closer, watching the timing belt, observing the subtle vibrations. After a minute, she motioned for Townsend to turn it off. "Well?" he asked, stepping out of the car. "You've got a problem with your timing chain tensioner," Maya said confidently. "And there's something else. Sounds like a foreign object might be caught in the secondary cooling system. Nothing catastrophic yet, but it could be if you keep driving it." Townsend turned to his assistant and smirked. "A timing chain tensioner? This car doesn't even have a timing chain. It has a gear-driven system." He shook his head and laughed again. "You'll never fix this," he said, this time addressing Maya directly. "She's just guessing," he added to his assistant, not bothering to lower his voice. What Townsend didn't know was that Maya had attended a specialized Lamborghini training course 3 years ago. She'd saved for months to pay for it, driving to Chicago every weekend for 6 weeks. She knew this particular model inside and out. "Actually," she said, keeping her voice level, "the Huracan has both. The primary valve timing is gear-driven, but the variable valve timing system uses a hydraulic tensioner with a timing chain. It's a common point of failure, especially if the oil hasn't been changed regularly with the right viscosity." Townsend's smug expression faltered slightly. His assistant looked up from his tablet, suddenly interested. "As for the cooling system," Maya continued, "I'd need to get it on a lift to confirm, but I'd bet your car kicked up something from the road. Maybe near that construction site by the river? It would explain the secondary noise." A flicker of surprise crossed Townsend's face. "I did drive past there this morning." Pete, who had been watching quietly, stepped in. "Like I said, Maya's the best. If she says that's the problem, that's the problem." Townsend looked between them, clearly torn between his prejudice and the fact that Maya had correctly guessed where he'd been driving. "Fine," he said finally. "How long will it take to fix?" "Depends on what I find once I get in there," Maya said. "But I'd estimate about 3 days." 3 days? Townsend exploded. "That's ridiculous. I need it tonight." "Not possible," Maya said simply. "Parts alone will take at least a day to get here, and that's if we rush the order. This isn't a job you can cut corners on." Townsend ran a hand through his hair again, clearly frustrated. "This is why I don't come to places like this," he muttered, just loud enough for everyone to hear. Maya felt her cheeks warm with anger, but she kept her expression neutral. Pete, however, had reached his limit. "Mr. Townsend," he said, his voice hard, "you're welcome to take your business elsewhere. There's a dealership about 40 miles from here. Maybe they can help you." The assistant leaned over and whispered something in Townsend's ear. The wealthy man's face darkened and he checked his watch. "Fine," he said finally. "Fix it. But if anything, and I mean anything, goes wrong with my car, I'll sue this shop into oblivion." He turned to Maya. "And you better know what you're doing." "I do," Maya said quietly, meeting his gaze without flinching. Townsend handed his card to Pete, then turned to his assistant. "Call me a car, and reschedule my appointments for the next few days." With that, he walked outside to wait, not bothering to say goodbye. As the door closed behind him, Pete turned to Maya. "You sure about this? That car's worth more than my insurance covers." Maya nodded slowly, already mentally cataloging the parts she'd need to order. "I'm sure. And when I'm done, that engine will run better than it did the day he drove it off the lot." Pete studied her face, then nodded. "I believe you." He clapped her on the shoulder. "Show him what you can do." Maya looked at the beautiful machine waiting for her attention. Beyond the insults and the disrespect, this was a chance to work on something special, to solve a puzzle that few people could. And when that engine roared back to life under her care, no one would question whether she belonged in this garage again. At least not until the next time. But that was a problem for another day. Right now she had work to do. The garage felt different after Townsend left. Maya stood in front of the silver Lamborghini, both excited and nervous about the task ahead. This wasn't just any repair job. It was a chance to prove something, though Maya hated that she still had to prove anything after 15 years of fixing cars. You sure about this? Pete asked again, coming to stand beside her. Rich guy like that? He could make trouble. Maya nodded, running her fingers lightly over the car's sleek hood. I'm sure. Besides, he already thinks I'll fail. Might as well show him what failure looks like. Pete chuckled. That's my girl. I'll call Hank about those parts. Tell him we need them fast-tracked, Maya said, already pulling her toolbox closer. And we'll need to clear Bay 3. I want this car on the lift within the hour. As Pete went to make the call, Maya circled the vehicle slowly. Despite Townsend's attitude, she couldn't help but admire the machine. It was a work of art, Italian engineering at its finest. The thought of getting under its hood made her fingers itch with anticipation. By noon, Maya had the car secured on the hydraulic lift. The other mechanics in the shop, Raj and Doug, kept finding excuses to walk by, stealing glances at the exotic car. Take a picture. It'll last longer, Maya teased as Raj passed by for the third time in 15 minutes. He grinned sheepishly. Can't blame a guy for looking. That's a $300,000 car. And I'm about to take apart a $50,000 engine, Maya replied. So unless you want to help, maybe give me some space to concentrate? Raj held up his hands in surrender and backed away, but not before asking, You gonna let me see that timing system when you get in there? Maya smiled despite herself. Maybe, if you finish Mrs. Wu's brake job before lunch. With that incentive, Raj hurried back to his own bay, leaving Maya alone with the Lamborghini. She tied her curly hair back more securely, put on her safety glasses, and got to work. The first step was diagnostic, connecting the car to the computer system to read any error codes. As expected, there were several alerts related to the timing system, but Maya knew better than to trust the computer entirely. Cars this complex often had problems the sensors couldn't properly identify. She raised the lift higher and slid underneath, examining the undercarriage with a practiced eye. Almost immediately, she spotted something unusual, a small tear in the protective covering near one of the cooling ducts. Using a flashlight, she peered inside and saw exactly what she'd suspected. A piece of construction debris, a small metal rod about the size of a pencil, had become wedged in the secondary cooling system. Found you, she murmured, carefully extracting the foreign object. It had scratched but not punctured any of the lines, a lucky break. If it had gone unaddressed much longer, it could have caused serious damage. That was the easy part. The timing chain issue would be much more complicated. By mid-afternoon, Maya had removed the necessary panels to access the engine compartment properly. What she found made her frown. The timing chain tensioner was indeed failing, but that wasn't the only problem. There was unusual wear on several components, suggesting the car hadn't been properly maintained despite its hefty price tag. Figures, she muttered. All that money and he can't even change the oil on schedule. She took photos with her phone, documenting the issues. Experience had taught her that when dealing with expensive cars and difficult owners, evidence was your best friend. Pete wandered over as she was examining the variable valve timing system. How bad is it? Maya straightened up, wincing as her back protested. Worse than I thought. Tensioner's shot, which I expected. But look at this wear pattern. She pointed to a set of gears. That shouldn't happen on a car this new. My guess is he's been racing it without proper warm-up. And the oil's wrong. Too light for this engine. Pete whistled low. Can you fix it? Yes, Maya said confidently. But it'll take more parts than we initially ordered. And more time. Townsend won't like that. Townsend doesn't have to like it. The alternative is a blown engine in a month or two. She wiped her hands on a shop rag. Call him. Tell him we found additional issues. The repairs will take 4 days, not 3, and it'll cost more. Pete nodded but hesitated. He'll blame you, you know. Say you're trying to scam him or something. Maya shrugged, already turning back to the engine. Let him. I've got the pictures to prove it. Besides, I'd rather have him mad now than have him come back with a seized engine later. As predicted, Townsend didn't take the news well. Maya could hear Pete on the phone in his office, his voice getting progressively louder as he tried to explain the situation. Finally, he emerged looking frustrated. Well, Maya asked, though she could guess the answer from Pete's expression. He thinks we're trying to rip him off. Says his real mechanic never found these problems. Pete made air quotes around the words real mechanic. He's sending someone tomorrow to look at the car. Some specialist from his usual place. Maya's stomach tightened, but she nodded. Fine. I'll show them exactly what I found. You don't sound worried, Raj observed from the next bay over, where he was eavesdropping without shame. I'm not, Maya said, though that wasn't entirely true. Facts are facts. Either his specialist knows what they're looking at or they don't. The truth was Maya was worried, not about being proven wrong, but about being undermined. She'd seen it happen before, male mechanics backing each other up, dismissing her findings because they couldn't believe a woman could spot something they'd missed. But she'd be damned if she let it show. The parts won't be here until tomorrow anyway, she said. Might as well use the time to clean up some of this gunk while we wait. She spent the rest of the afternoon meticulously cleaning the accessible engine components, documenting everything with photos. When the shop closed at 6, Pete told her to go home, but Maya shook her head. I want to prep for tomorrow. Get everything ready to show this specialist exactly what's going on. Pete looked like he wanted to argue, but seemed to think better of it. Don't stay too late, and lock up when you leave. After everyone had gone, the garage took on a different feel, quieter, almost peaceful. Maya turned on the radio to a classic rock station and lost herself in the work. This was her favorite part of the job. Just her and the machine, no distractions, no judgments. Cars didn't care who fixed them, only that they were fixed right. Around 9, her phone buzzed with a text from her sister Ava. You still at work? Maya sighed and texted back, yeah, special project. Don't wait up. Again? You work too hard. Don't forget Zoe's recital on Saturday. Maya smiled at the mention of her niece. Wouldn't miss it, promise. She set the phone down and stretched, her back cracking in protest. Tomorrow would be challenging. The specialist from Townsend's regular shop would arrive, probably with preconceived notions about her competence. He'd either back up her assessment or try to undermine her, and Maya would have to navigate it all while maintaining her professionalism. But tonight it was just her and this beautiful machine. She turned back to the engine, humming along with the radio. The timing system lay exposed before her, complex and intricate. Most people would be intimidated, but Maya saw it differently, like a puzzle waiting to be solved. She thought about Townsend's dismissive laugh, his certainty that she couldn't fix his precious car. The memory should have made her angry, but instead it fueled her determination. She'd encountered men like him her entire career, men who took one look at her and decided she couldn't possibly know what she was doing. The first time it happened, she'd been 16 taking auto shop in high school. The teacher had assigned partners for an engine rebuild, and her partner, a football player named Drew, had refused to let her touch anything. Just take notes, he'd said. I'll do the real work. Maya had gone home and cried that night, not because she was hurt, but because she was furious. The next day, she'd come back with a detailed diagram of the engine they were supposed to rebuild, complete with annotations about common problems and solutions. Drew had stared at it, then at her, before silently handing her a wrench. 15 years later, she was still having to prove herself. But somewhere along the way, it had stopped being just about proving others wrong. It had become about the pure satisfaction of the work itself, the challenge of diagnosing problems, the methodical process of fixing them, the unmatched feeling when an engine roared back to life under her care. As midnight approached, Maya finally packed up her tools. She'd done all she could to prepare for tomorrow. The rest would depend on what kind of specialist Townsend sent, someone interested in the truth or someone looking to protect their turf. Either way, Maya knew one thing for certain. She was right about this engine, and no amount of wealth or privilege could change that fact. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but for tonight she'd done her part. She turned off the lights and locked the garage door, her mind still on the elegant Italian machine waiting inside. Whatever happened tomorrow, she'd face it head on, just like she'd faced every other challenge in her career. After all, engines didn't lie. And neither did she. Morning came too quickly. Maya had barely slept, her mind racing with thoughts about the Lamborghini's engine and the specialist who would arrive to scrutinize her work. She arrived at the garage an hour early, nursing a large coffee and reviewing her notes from yesterday. The specialist arrived at precisely 9 o'clock. Maya watched through the office window as a sleek black car pulled up outside. A tall man in his 50s stepped out, dressed in crisp, dark blue coveralls with an embroidered logo that read Prestige Automotive, and he carried a leather tool case that looked more expensive than Maya's entire collection of tools. Pete greeted him at the door. "Morning," You must be Mr. Chen. Just Chen is fine, the man said, his voice carrying a slight accent. I understand you have Mr. Townsend's Lamborghini? Maya stepped forward, extending her hand. Maya Jackson. I'm the one working on the car. Chen looked at her with mild surprise but shook her hand firmly. His expression gave nothing away as Pete led them both to Bay 3, where the Lamborghini waited on the lift. Mr. Townsend says you found problems with the timing system, Chen said, addressing Maya directly. She appreciated that he hadn't immediately looked to Pete for confirmation. Yes, Maya said, moving to the car. But there's more than just the tensioner issue. Let me show you. For the next hour, Maya walked Chen through everything she'd found. The foreign object in the cooling system, the failing tensioner, and the unusual wear patterns. She showed him the photos she'd taken and explained her diagnosis. Chen listened silently, occasionally asking a question or leaning in for a closer look. Finally, he straightened up and nodded. You're right. All of it. Maya tried not to look too relieved.
So you'll tell Mr. Townsend?
I already texted him, Chen said, holding up his phone. He's not happy, but he's authorized the additional repairs. He paused, studying Maya with newfound interest. Where did you train? Started in high school auto shop, Maya said. Then trade school. I did a specialized course on Italian performance vehicles 3 years ago. Chen nodded approvingly. Good eye. Most people would have missed the wear pattern on the gears. He hesitated, then added, If you ever want a job at Prestige, let me know. We could use someone with your attention to detail. The compliment caught Maya off guard. Thanks, she managed. But I'm happy here. After Chen left, Pete clapped her on the shoulder. See? Told you there was nothing to worry about. Maya rolled her eyes. As if you weren't just as nervous as I was, Pete laughed. Maybe a little. But now we've got the go-ahead, and the parts should be here any minute. Think you can finish it by Friday? If the parts are right, definitely, Maya said, already mentally planning the repair sequence. The delivery truck arrived just after lunch, bringing the specialized components they'd ordered. Maya checked each part carefully before accepting the shipment. Everything looked good. Genuine Lamborghini components, not aftermarket substitutes. By mid-afternoon, she was deep into the repair process. The garage hummed with activity around her, but Maya barely noticed. She was in her element, focused entirely on the complex machine before her. Removing the damaged components required patience and precision. One wrong move could cause additional problems. Maya worked methodically, documenting each step with photos in case questions arose later. How's it going? Raj asked, stopping by around 4 o'clock. Maya straightened up, wincing as her back protested. Good. Just finished removing the damaged tensioner. Look at this. She held up the part. See how it's worn? That shouldn't happen with normal driving. Raj whistled low. Someone's been pushing this car too hard. Exactly, Maya said. And with the wrong oil. Rich people, I swear. They'll spend a fortune on a car, then try to save $20 on maintenance. The rest of the day passed quickly. By closing time, Maya had made significant progress, but the most challenging work still lay ahead. Again, she stayed late, losing herself in the intricate puzzle of the engine. The next day brought a new challenge. As Maya was installing the new timing components, she noticed something the diagnostic tests had missed. A hairline crack in one of the auxiliary coolant lines. If left unaddressed, it would eventually fail, potentially causing catastrophic engine damage. Pete, she called, waving him over. We've got another problem. Pete examined the crack and frowned. That's not good. We didn't order a replacement for this. I know, Maya said, and getting one will take at least 2 more days. Townsend will hit the roof if we tell him there's another delay. Maya bit her lip, thinking, what if we don't need to replace it? I might have another solution. For years, Maya had been experimenting with repair techniques not found in standard manuals. She'd developed a method for reinforcing damaged cooling lines, using a specialized epoxy compound and carbon fiber wrap. A technique she'd learned from an old NASCAR mechanic she'd met at a trade show. It's not in the manual, she admitted to Pete, but I've done it before on high-performance engines. It actually ends up stronger than the original part. Pete looked skeptical. You sure about this? If it fails, it won't, Maya said with confidence. I'll stake my reputation on it. Pete studied her face, then nodded slowly. Okay, do your thing. But document everything. The repair was delicate work. Maya mixed the specialized epoxy compound to the exact proportions needed, then carefully applied it to the cleaned and prepared line. Next came layers of carbon fiber wrap, each one meticulously positioned and sealed. The result was an almost invisible repair that would be stronger than the original component. By the end of the third day, Maya had finished the major repairs. The timing system was completely rebuilt with new components. The cooling system was repaired and thoroughly tested, and she'd even taken the time to clean and adjust several other components that weren't quite failing, but weren't performing optimally either. You didn't have to do all that, Pete observed as he watched her polish a section of the engine that would never be seen by anyone but another mechanic. Maya shrugged. I know, but it deserves to be done right. She ran her hand lightly over the gleaming engine. This car is a masterpiece of engineering. Treating it any other way would be disrespectful. Pete shook his head, smiling. You and your engines. Sometimes I think you care more about them than people. Engines are honest, Maya replied simply. They don't lie, they don't judge, and when they have problems, they tell you, if you know how to listen. On the morning of the fourth day, Maya arrived early again. Today was the moment of truth, the first startup after the repairs. She double-checked every connection, inspected all fluid levels, and ran through her mental checklist one final time. Ready? Pete asked, watching from a few feet away. Raj and Doug had also gathered to witness the moment. Maya nodded, taking a deep breath. Here goes nothing. She slid into the driver's seat, feeling slightly out of place in the luxurious interior. The key fob rested in her palm, its weight somehow significant. Maya pressed the start button. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then the engine turned over once, twice, and roared to life with a sound so pure it made the hair on Maya's arms stand up. The Lamborghini's engine wasn't just running, it was singing. Maya listened carefully, her trained ear catching nuances most people would miss. The timing was perfect. No rattles, no whines, no hesitation. Just the powerful, smooth purr of a perfectly tuned, high-performance engine. She revved it slightly, listening to how it responded. The engine's note changed, climbing through the octaves like a well-rehearsed symphony. Maya couldn't help the smile that spread across her face. This was why she did this work, for moments like this. She switched off the engine and stepped out to find her colleagues staring at her with undisguised admiration. That, said Doug, sounds better than when it came in. Way better, Raj agreed. What did you do to it? Maya shrugged, trying to look modest despite the pride swelling in her chest. Just fixed what was broken and tweaked what wasn't quite right. Pete clapped her on the shoulder. Amazing work, Maya, truly amazing. Should we call Townsend? Maya asked, glancing at the clock. It was just past 9. Pete nodded. I'll do it now. He said he wanted to pick it up as soon as it was ready. As Pete went to make the call, Maya began cleaning up her tools and organizing her documentation. She'd taken detailed notes throughout the repair process, partly for the shop records and partly because she liked having a reference for future jobs. Townsend's coming at noon, Pete announced, returning from his office. And he's bringing someone with him. Maya raised an eyebrow. Another specialist? He didn't say, Pete replied. Just that he was bringing a colleague to see the car. Maya nodded, trying to ignore the flutter of nervousness in her stomach. She'd done everything right, more than right. The car was in better condition now than when Townsend had first driven it off the showroom floor. But still, a part of her wondered if he'd find something to criticize, some reason to doubt her work. Well, she said, closing her toolbox with a decisive click, I guess we'll find out soon enough. The clock seemed to tick more slowly as noon approached. Maya had cleaned the Lamborghini until it gleamed, inside and out. Not because she had to, but because she took pride in her work. Every car that left her bay deserved to look as good as it ran. You're making the rest of us look bad, Doug joked as he watched her polish the dashboard for the third time. It's just going to get dirty again as soon as he drives it. Maya smiled but didn't stop. Maybe, but first impressions matter. At precisely 12 o'clock, 2 vehicles pulled into the parking lot, a sleek black SUV with tinted windows and a bright red Ferrari that made Raj whistle appreciatively from across the garage. Looks like Townsend brought a friend with expensive taste, Pete murmured as they watched through the front windows. Maya's stomach tightened with nervousness, but she stood tall. She knew her work was flawless. Whatever happened next, she had that certainty to hold on to. Townsend emerged from the SUV, dressed in an immaculate suit that probably cost more than Maya's monthly rent. From the Ferrari stepped a shorter man with silver hair and designer sunglasses. He moved with the confidence of someone used to commanding attention. Pete went to greet them at the door. "Mr. Townsend, good afternoon." "Wilson?" Townsend nodded curtly. He gestured to his companion. "This is Vincent Romano. He's the CEO of Romano Luxury Imports." Maya recognized the name immediately. Romano Luxury Imports was one of the largest exotic car dealerships in the country. They sold Lamborghinis, Ferraris, and other high-end vehicles to wealthy clients across the Midwest. "A pleasure," Pete said, shaking Romano's hand. "I'm Pete Wilson, the owner. And this is Maya Jackson, the mechanic who worked on your car, Mr. Townsend." Maya stepped forward, offering her hand. Townsend hesitated almost imperceptibly before shaking it, his grip noticeably lighter than when he'd greeted Pete. Romano, however, shook her hand firmly, studying her with interest. "So," Townsend said, his tone making it clear he was still skeptical. "You claim the car is fixed?" "It is fixed," Maya replied evenly. "Would you like to see?" Without waiting for an answer, she led the way to the Lamborghini, which sat in the center of the bay, its silver paint gleaming under the garage lights. She'd left the hood open to showcase the engine, now immaculately clean and visibly well organized. "I documented the entire repair process," Maya explained, handing Townsend a folder containing printouts of her photos and notes. "You'll find before and after images of each component we replaced or repaired, along with explanations of what was wrong and how it was fixed." Townsend barely glanced at the folder before handing it to his assistant, who had trailed in behind them. Romano, however, moved forward to examine the engine with a practiced eye. "You replaced the timing chain tensioner," he observed, pointing to the component. "Yes," Maya confirmed, "and several related parts that had been damaged by the failing tensioner. I also found and removed a piece of construction debris that had become lodged in the secondary cooling system." Romano nodded approvingly. "Clean work." Townsend seemed unmoved by his friend's approval. "Well, the real test is how it runs, isn't it?" he said, reaching for the key fob Maya held. "Of course," she said, handing it over. "Would you like to start it here first or take it for a test drive right away?" "Both," Townsend replied. He circled the car once, inspecting the exterior with a critical eye before sliding into the driver's seat. The interior looked showroom new thanks to Maya's meticulous cleaning. He pressed the start button and the engine roared to life with a sound that made everyone in the garage pause what they were doing to listen. It was the mechanical equivalent of a perfect musical note, powerful, smooth, and precisely tuned. Maya watched Townsend's face, catching the flash of surprise quickly masked by practiced indifference. He revved the engine a few times, listening carefully, then switched it off and stepped out. "Sounds acceptable," he said, though his tone didn't match his words. There was a reluctant respect there that hadn't been present before. "I'll take it for a drive now. Romano, you coming?" "Wouldn't miss it," Romano replied, his eyes still on Maya rather than Townsend or the car. "I'll ride along too if you don't mind," Maya said. It wasn't really a question. She always rode along on the first test drive after a major repair, regardless of who was behind the wheel. Townsend looked like he wanted to object, but just nodded curtly. "Fine, get in." Maya slid into the back seat of the Lamborghini while Romano took the passenger seat. The engine started again with that same perfect note, and Townsend carefully maneuvered the car out of the garage and onto the street. For the first few minutes, he drove cautiously as if expecting something to go wrong. When nothing did, he gradually pushed the car harder, accelerating on straightaways and taking corners with increasing confidence. "Try it on the highway," Romano suggested, pointing toward the on-ramp ahead. Townsend obliged, smoothly merging onto the highway and opening up the throttle. The Lamborghini responded instantly, surging forward with a power that pressed them all back into their seats. The speedometer climbed rapidly, 60, 70, 80, 90, before Townsend eased off. "Well?" Romano asked, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Townsend didn't answer immediately. He took the next exit and navigated back toward the city streets before finally speaking. "It runs better than it did when I bought it." Maya caught his gaze in the rearview mirror. "That's because it does. The factory settings were good, but I made a few adjustments to improve throttle response and cold start performance. I hope that's okay." "You modified my car without permission?" Townsend asked, his voice sharp. Not modified, optimized, Maya corrected. I didn't change any components beyond what needed replacing. I just adjusted the settings to better match your driving style. And how would you know my driving style? Townsend challenged. The wear patterns tell the story, Maya explained. You like to accelerate hard from a stop. You take corners aggressively. And you don't always wait for the engine to warm up properly before pushing it. There was a moment of silence as Townsend absorbed this. Then surprisingly he laughed. Not the dismissive laugh from their first meeting, but a genuine sound of amusement. You got all that from looking at my engine? Engines don't lie, Maya said simply. Romano turned in his seat to look at her more directly. Where did you train, Ms. Jackson? Trade school, Maya replied. And a lot of hands-on experience. I did a specialized course on Italian performance vehicles a few years back. Impressive, Romano said. We have technicians at the dealership who've been working on these cars for decades who couldn't have done better work. Townsend guided the car back toward Wilson's auto shop, driving more fluidly now, clearly enjoying the improved performance. When they pulled into the parking lot, Pete was waiting outside, trying not to look anxious. Well? He asked as they all climbed out. It's perfect, Romano answered before Townsend could speak. Your mechanic did exceptional work. Townsend nodded, running his hand along the sleek hood of his car. I have to admit I'm impressed. He looked at Maya with newfound respect. You really knew what you were talking about. I apologize for doubting you. The apology caught Maya off guard. She hadn't expected one and wasn't quite sure how to respond. Thank you, she said finally. I appreciate that. Pete led them inside to complete the paperwork and process the payment. Maya hung back, giving the car one final inspection out of habit. She was checking the tire pressure when Romano approached her again. Ms. Jackson, he said, I meant what I said earlier. Your work is exceptional. Thank you, Maya replied, straightening up. But it's just what anyone with the right training would do. Romano shook his head. No, it isn't. What you did goes beyond training. You have a gift, an intuitive understanding of these machines that can't be taught. He reached into his pocket and extracted a business card, offering it to her. I'd like you to consider coming to work for me at Romano Imports. Maya stared at the card, surprised. I'm happy here at Wilson's. I'm sure you are, Romano said. But at my shop you'd be working exclusively on exotic vehicles, Lamborghinis, Ferraris, Bugattis. And I'd pay you twice what you're making now, plus benefits. Maya's heart raced at the thought. Working on high-performance vehicles every day with proper tools and resources. It was tempting. Very tempting. Think about it, Romano said, seeing her hesitation. No rush. The offer stands whenever you're ready. Inside, Townsend was settling the bill, not even blinking at the final amount. As Maya entered, he looked up and nodded to her again, this time with genuine respect. I have another event this weekend, a charity race, he said. Would the car be up for it? Absolutely, Maya assured him. Just make sure to warm it up properly first, and come see me afterward for a checkup. I will, Townsend promised. He hesitated, then added, and I'll recommend this shop to my friends. Not many places I'd trust with a car like this, but you've earned it. After they left, Pete turned to Maya with a wide grin. Well, look at that. You've got Blake Townsend singing your praises and Vincent Romano trying to steal you away. Maya laughed, the tension of the past few days finally melting away. I'm not going anywhere, Pete, at least not yet. Good, Pete said firmly, because I don't know what I'd do without you. He nodded toward the business card in her hand. Though you should keep that. Options are always good to have. Maya tucked the card into her pocket, her mind already turning to the next challenge. The sense of victory was sweet, but it was the work itself that truly satisfied her. The puzzle of each engine. The satisfaction of finding solutions. The pure joy when a machine ran exactly as it should, and no one could laugh at that. 3 weeks passed. Quickly after Townsend drove his Lamborghini out of Wilson's auto shop, Maya fell back into her regular routine, fixing brakes, changing oil, diagnosing engine problems on everyday cars. Yet something had shifted inside her. The challenge of working on that high-performance engine had awakened something, a hunger for more. Romano's business card sat on her bedside table. Each night Maya would look at it, turning it over in her fingers, considering the possibilities it represented. Twice her current salary, benefits, a garage full of exotic cars. It was tempting, very tempting. On a rainy Tuesday morning, Maya was replacing spark plugs in a Honda Civic, when the familiar sound of an Italian engine caught her attention. She looked up to see the silver Lamborghini pulling into the parking lot. "Your friend's back," Pete called from across the garage. Maya wiped her hands on a shop rag and went to meet Townsend as he stepped out of the car, shielding himself from the rain with an expensive-looking umbrella. "Mr. Townsend," she greeted him. "Everything okay with the car?" "Perfect," he replied, and Maya noticed his tone lacked the condescension of their first meeting. "I just got back from that charity race I mentioned. Took first place." He patted the hood of the Lamborghini. "She performed beautifully." "Glad to hear it," Maya said, genuinely pleased. "Just a routine checkup then." "Actually," Townsend said, "I'm here for something else. Could we talk in private?" Curious, Maya led him to Pete's small office. Pete, sensing something important, excused himself to help a customer. "I've been thinking about our interaction when we first met," Townsend began once they were seated. "I was less than respectful." "Water under the bridge," Maya said with a shrug. "You weren't the first customer to doubt me, and you won't be the last." "That's exactly my point," Townsend said, leaning forward. "I made assumptions based on how you looked, not on your skills or knowledge. It was wrong, and I've been thinking about it ever since." Maya wasn't sure where this was heading. "I appreciate the apology, but you already gave me one. Is there something else you needed?" "Yes," Townsend said decisively. "I've been talking with Vincent Romano. He told me you turned down his job offer." Maya raised an eyebrow. "You two discussed me?" "We did," Townsend admitted. "And I think I understand why you declined. You don't want to just work on nice cars, you want something of your own." Maya sat back, surprised by his insight. "I've thought about opening my own shop someday, but that's years away. I'd need capital, connections, a client base. What if you could start sooner?" Townsend asked. "What if someone were to invest in your vision?" Maya stared at him, trying to process what he was suggesting. "Are you saying you want to invest in a garage I don't even have yet?" "I'm saying I recognize talent when I see it, even if I was slow to do so initially," Townsend replied. "And I invest in talent. It's how I built my business." He pulled a folder from his briefcase and placed it on the desk between them. "This is a business proposal. Take it home, read it over. If you're interested, we can discuss details." Maya opened the folder cautiously. Inside was a professionally prepared business plan for a high-end auto shop specializing in performance vehicles. The proposed name at the top of the document made her breath catch. Jackson Performance Engineering. "This is," she began, but words failed her. "Just a starting point," Townsend said. "You'd have creative control, of course. I'd be a silent partner, providing capital and connections, nothing more." "Why?" Maya asked, looking up from the documents. "Why would you do this for someone you barely know?" Townsend was quiet for a moment. "My father was a mechanic," he said finally. "Not high-end cars, just regular ones. But he was good. Really good. And for 30 years he worked for someone else, fixing other people's vehicles, making a decent living but never getting ahead." He paused, looking out the window at the rain. "When he died 5 years ago, I realized he never got to see his name on a building. Never got to build something of his own, and he should have. He had the talent but not the opportunity." Townsend looked back at Maya. "I can't change that for him, but maybe I can make a difference for someone else who deserves a shot." Maya didn't know what to say. This was the last thing she'd expected when she'd seen the Lamborghini pull up. "Think about it," Townsend said, rising from his chair. "No pressure. But don't turn it down just because you're comfortable here, or because you're not sure you're ready. From what I've seen, you're more than ready." After Townsend left, Maya sat in Pete's office for a long time, the folder open in front of her. The business plan was thorough. Projected costs, revenue models, marketing strategies, even potential locations. It was everything she'd daydreamed about but never thought would be possible for years, maybe decades. "So," Pete said, poking his head in the door, "what did the rich guy want?" Maya looked up, unsure how to tell her mentor and friend that she might be leaving. "He wants to invest in me. Help me start my own shop." To her surprise, Pete's face split into a wide grin. "About time someone did. When do you start?" "You're not upset?" Maya asked, confused. Pete came in and sat down across from her. "Maya, I've known for years you wouldn't stay here forever. You're too good, too ambitious. Why do you think I've been teaching you about the business side of things, showing you how to handle suppliers, deal with difficult customers, manage the books? I thought you were just being thorough." Maya admitted. Pete laughed. I was preparing you. Every good teacher wants their student to eventually outgrow them. His expression grew more serious. Is it a good offer? It seems to be, Maya said, pushing the folder toward him. But I don't want to leave you short-handed. Pete waved away her concern as he scanned the documents. I can hire another mechanic. Finding someone as good as you won't be easy. But this shop was running before you came along and it'll run after you go. He whistled as he read through the financial projections. This is the real deal, Maya. Townsend's not playing around. I don't know if I'm ready, Maya confessed. Nobody ever feels ready for the big jumps, Pete said, handing the folder back. But sometimes you have to leap anyway. Over the next 2 weeks, Maya met with Townsend several times to discuss the proposal. Each meeting left her more convinced that this was a genuine opportunity. Townsend would provide the initial capital and help with connections in exchange for a 30% stake in the business. Maya would own the majority and have complete control over day-to-day operations. By the end of the month, she had signed the partnership agreement. 2 days later, she gave Pete her notice, with the promise to stay on until he found a suitable replacement. Just make sure you send all those fancy cars my way when they need regular maintenance, Pete joked, though his eyes were suspiciously bright as he hugged her goodbye. On her last day, the location Townsend had found was perfect. A former specialty car dealership that had gone out of business during the economic downturn. It had high ceilings, plenty of space, and best of all, it was only 10 minutes from Maya's apartment. With Townsend's investment, she was able to outfit it with top-of-the-line equipment, much of it far better than what she'd been working with at Wilson's. Romano came through as well, referring several of his clients to her new shop even before the official opening. These cars need someone who understands them, he told her. Someone with your touch. The grand opening of Jackson Performance Engineering was scheduled for a Saturday in early summer. Maya arrived 2 hours early, too nervous and excited to sleep. She walked through the gleaming space, still not quite believing it was hers. The polished concrete floors, the state-of-the-art lifts, the specialized tools arranged precisely as she wanted them. It was everything she'd dreamed of and more. Her sister Ava arrived first, with Maya's niece Zoe bouncing excitedly at her side. This place is amazing, Ava exclaimed, looking around with wide eyes. I can't believe this is really happening. Me either, Maya admitted, kneeling to hug Zoe. What do you think, kiddo? Does Auntie Maya's new shop look cool? It's the coolest, Zoe declared. Can I help fix cars too? Absolutely, Maya said seriously. Every great mechanic needs an apprentice. By 10 o'clock, the shop was filled with people. Pete and the guys from Wilson, several of Townsend's associates, Romano and a few of his clients, neighbors, friends, and even some curious car enthusiasts who'd seen the advertisements. Townsend himself arrived in the silver Lamborghini that had started it all, parking it prominently in front of the building. Perfect timing, Maya said as he joined her near the entrance. I was just about to make a little speech. It's your show, Townsend said with a smile. I'm just here to celebrate. Maya took a deep breath and stepped forward, raising her voice to be heard over the crowd. I want to thank everyone for coming today. A year ago, if you'd told me I'd be standing here opening my own shop, I wouldn't have believed you.